My name is Linda Secor, and I'm 34 years old. At my parents' 38th anniversary in our backyard in Mason, Ohio, my sister Megan climbed onto my husband Cole's lap in front of 40 guests. She raised her wine glass and laughed. My mother immediately raised hers and said loudly, "They actually look better together." Linda's too busy saving strangers and pumping hormones into her empty body to ever give Cole a real child anyway. The whole family erupted in laughter. I stood up shaking, the pain from 3 failed IVF cycles still raw in my chest. Cole didn't move at first. Then he slowly stood up, looked straight at Megan, and spoke one sentence that wiped the smile off her face and turned my mother's glass to ice in her hand. What none of them knew was that this public humiliation wasn't the end of my story. It was the exact moment their carefully hidden secrets would begin to destroy them instead. Welcome back to Revenge Episodes. This is the channel where family betrayal starts with a toast and ends with receipts. If you've ever been stabbed in the back by the people who were supposed to love you most, stay with me, drop a comment below, and hit subscribe. The real story is just beginning. Cole and I have been married 6 years. I met him at Christ Hospital, Cincinnati at 3 in the morning in September of 2018. He was sitting next to his mother in the ER waiting room. She'd come in with chest pains that turned out to be acid reflux. I was working overtime, still in my scrubs, and I sat down 2 chairs away because it was the only chair with a working armrest. He kept refilling his mother's water cup. He thanked every nurse who walked past. When I finally got off shift at 6 a.m., he asked if he could buy me coffee. I said yes because he didn't look at me like a woman he wanted to impress. He looked at me like a person he wanted to remember. 22 months later, in June of 2020, we married in the little garden behind Mason United Methodist Church, in front of 42 of the people who loved us most. Cole was 30. I was 29. He was already teaching American history at Mason High and coaching JV football. I had just finished my first year as a CRNA at Christ Hospital, putting patients under and bringing them back for a living. He made $68,000 a year. I made $212. My mother never let me forget which number was which. She had a way of asking about my paycheck at family dinners, then pausing before dessert to ask when Cole was going to finally step up. As if a man who made scrambled eggs at 10 p.m. for his exhausted wife hadn't already stepped up. On the mornings after my night shifts, Cole always had coffee waiting on the kitchen counter. That April, 3 weeks before my parents' 38th anniversary party, I came home at 6 a.m. from a 14-hour shift and found something new on the counter beside the coffee. A folded index card. In his teacher's handwriting, in blue pen, 4 short lines. 3rd year in a row. Whatever the result, I'm here. He'd been counting the IVF cycles the way I'd been counting them. He hadn't said so out loud in weeks, because I had asked him not to. I whispered from the counter, "You didn't have to." He was leaning in the doorway with his hair still wet from the shower. I did. I put the card in the drawer with our marriage certificate and the letter from Fertility Center of Ohio. When I turned back, his phone was buzzing on the table. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and turned it face down without answering. I didn't ask. He didn't offer. That was the shape of our house. 2 Sundays before the anniversary, my mother Deborah invited us to dinner at the house I grew up in on Reading Road. She always invited Cole. She invited me because I came with him. My older sister Megan was there with her 2 kids from her marriage to Brandon Doyle, Tyler, who was 8, and Josie, who was 5. My mother had seated Megan next to Cole, the way she'd been seating Megan next to Cole at every family dinner for a year. Megan touched his arm twice during grace. Nobody at that table thought that was strange except me. Halfway through the meal, Megan reached across Cole for the salt and let her hand rest on his shoulder, longer than the salt required. "Cole, you're the only man in this house who can carve a turkey without complaining," she said. "Some women appreciate that." My mother from across the table. "Right, Linda." And the whole room laughed. I laughed too. I had 34 years of practice. After dinner, Cole stood on the back porch making a phone call. His voice was too quiet for me to hear the words. When I opened the door to bring him a coffee, he ended the call immediately and put the phone back in his pocket. He kissed the top of my head. He asked if I wanted to go home. I said yes. I did not ask who he'd been talking to. Cole had started running on Saturday mornings that January. He never invited me. He said he needed the quiet. On the third Saturday of April, the Saturday before the anniversary, I found a folded envelope in the pocket of his running shorts when I was doing laundry. There was no letter inside. Just 3 words in his handwriting on the outside of the envelope. September to November. I put the shorts in the dryer. I put the envelope back exactly where I found it. I told myself I trusted him. I had for 6 years. Whatever those 3 months meant, he would tell me when he was ready. That afternoon, my father Dale came over to fix a slow drain in our kitchen. He had been a plumber for 40 years before he retired in 2022, and he still refused to let me pay a stranger for anything that could be handled with a pipe wrench. When he was done, he walked out to the garage without saying why, and I followed him because I knew. The high chair was still there. Solid oak. He'd bought it at a Loveland wood shop 3 years ago, right after our first failed IVF cycle. He'd brought it over on a Sunday afternoon and set it down in our kitchen and said, "For when you're ready." I had wept in his arms in the driveway. I had not been able to move it since. He stood in front of it for a long time. Then he said, without turning around, "You know I still think about the day I bought this." "Dad, we're trying again." "I know, honey." His voice was low. "But I want you to know, whatever happens next, I'm on your side. Not hers." He said hers the way a man says a name he can't afford to speak. I didn't know then which woman he meant. 2 weeks later, I would understand he meant both. Cole was mowing the front lawn the next morning when his phone lit up on the kitchen counter beside my coffee. I looked at the screen without meaning to. "Renee. 4th call today." I looked at it for a long time. When he came back inside for water, I said, "Who's Renee?" He answered too calmly, "Just school stuff." I nodded. I finished my coffee. When he went back out, I opened the Mason High School staff directory on my laptop and searched for Renee. There was no teacher, no coach, no counselor, no aide by that name in the entire district. Before I take you into the family history that led to that toast, let me warn you now, the receipts get worse from here. If you're here for justice, not just gossip, stay with me. You need to know some things about my mother before I take you back to April 25th. Deborah Secor has been the secretary at Mason United Methodist Church for 19 years. She runs the Women's Fellowship, which has about 60 active members and meets in the church basement every Thursday. She has a favorite hymnal that she keeps in the front pew and a favorite chair in the fellowship kitchen that no one is allowed to sit in but her. Every woman in that church has heard her say the phrase, "The Lord doesn't ask, He appoints." Most of them are pretty sure she believes He appointed her. She was 26 when she married my father in April of 1988. Megan was born 8.5 months later in December of that year. My mother told everyone at church Megan came early. Nobody counted the months. That's the kind of town Mason is. I was born 2.5 years after Megan, in April of 1991. From the day I was old enough to notice, my mother had a system. Megan got the new dress for Easter. I got Megan's old dress. Megan got the piano lessons. I got a used Bible. When Megan was 15, my mother gave her a cashmere sweater from a boutique in Cincinnati that cost $180. When I was 12, she gave me a leather-bound New International Version with an inscription on the inside cover, "To the daughter who understands sacrifice." I still have that Bible on the shelf in my living room. For 22 years, I thought that inscription was a compliment. It wasn't. It was an instruction. Cole and I started IVF in March of 2023. The first cycle failed at week 3. The embryo simply stopped developing. The second cycle, in February of 2024, made it to week 7 before I miscarried in the bathroom at work between 2 cases. The third cycle was in October of 2025. I don't want to describe the days that followed the transfer. I will say only that when Dr. Bellamy told us the beta test was negative, Cole drove me home from the clinic and did not turn the radio on for the entire 30-minute drive. We had spent $76,400 of our own money on those 3 cycles. Insurance covered nothing. I kept the invoices in the top drawer of my desk in a manila folder labeled Cycle 1, Cycle 2, Cycle 3. When I opened that drawer the Monday after the third cycle failed, I noticed something at the bottom of the folder that wasn't mine. A single sheet, a printout of a request submitted to Fertility Center of Ohio's Medical Records Department. The signature at the bottom was Cole's. The request was for the full chart of my Cycle 3, including embryology chain of custody documentation. He'd filed it 12 days earlier. He hadn't told me. A week later, my mother left me a voicemail. She didn't ask if I was all right. She didn't mention the cycle. She said, in that pastoral voice she uses for people she's already decided about, "Honey, I know you've had a rough time, but Megan really needs family right now with the custody situation. Try not to make Christmas about the IVF this year." I deleted the voicemail. I didn't tell Cole. I had been deleting voicemails from my mother for as long as I'd had a phone. The week after that, I met my friend Colleen O'Brien for coffee at the little bakery in Montgomery. Colleen has been a CRNA at Christ Hospital as long as I have. We did residency together at Miami of Ohio. She stirred her latte and looked at me the way she looks at patients whose vitals are trending wrong. Then she said, without warm-up, "Linda, I've got a tech friend at Fertility Center. She told me the mother ID on your Cycle 3 didn't match the chart date." Small thing, but strange. I stopped stirring my coffee. "What was the nurse's name?" Colleen asked. "The one who was in the transfer suite, the night shift RN. I want to say she was Renee something?" I remembered the phone screen on the kitchen counter. Renee. 4th call today. I did not say the name out loud in the bakery. I told Colleen I would call her the next day. That night, after Cole was asleep, I went into the guest room where I kept our photo albums. I found the Christmas card from 2019, the last one before Megan's divorce. My mother was at the center. Megan stood on her right, her hand on my mother's shoulder. Cole and I stood in the back, on either side of my father. I turned the photo over. On the back, in my father's careful pencil handwriting, 4 words I had never noticed before. Truth wins, even when it waits. The Wednesday before the anniversary, my mother called me about the party. She was calling everyone. She had to make sure the flowers were the right shade of cream. She had to make sure the pastor was seated near the family. She had to make sure Megan had a place of honor, because Megan had been through so much. And then she said in the same casual voice, "Oh, and honey, please don't wear that navy dress again. It makes you look tired. Megan's going with cream. Just so you know." I said I would come. I said I would think about the dress. After we hung up, I opened Cole's wallet to pay for a pizza that was on its way, and there was another folded piece of paper behind his driver's license. A biller's receipt from Fertility Center of Ohio. Medical records request. Filed by Cole Whitaker. I put the receipt back where I found it. I paid the pizza delivery driver in cash. I ate 1 slice standing at the counter while I thought about the question that had been nagging me for a week. If Cole was cheating on me with a woman named Renee, why was he filing records requests about my failed IVF cycle? That question would carry me through the next 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, it would save my life. 3 weeks before the party, my mother started a family group chat titled C-Corps Anniversary 2026. She added 17 people. Aunt Marilyn Grady, my mother's younger sister. My cousin Karen Wexler, who was Marilyn's daughter. My father's brother. The pastor's wife. Half a dozen women from Women's Fellowship. Megan and Brandon's mother, Sylvia Doyle, even though Megan and Brandon had been divorced for 4 years. She added me and Cole last. She posted a seating chart the same night. Megan was at table 1 with Cole. My father and my mother were also at table 1. I was at table 4, near the kitchen door, with cousin Karen and Pastor Ellis Hartwell. Cole always loved my centerpiece flowers, my mother typed underneath the chart. So I put him near them. Linda, honey, you're at table 4 with cousin Karen. You two always have so much to catch up on. Cole read that message over my shoulder. He didn't say anything. He just nodded once. I typed a response, deleted it, and typed nothing. The dress code came the next morning. Pastels or white for the family. I asked in the chat if navy was all right. My mother replied privately, 30 seconds later. Anything you feel best in. Megan is going with cream. Just so you know. I opened my closet that night. The navy dress hung on the back of the door. I chose it. 5 days before the party, Megan called Cole to borrow his car. Hers was in the shop. She lived 12 minutes away in a townhouse near the reservoir. Cole drove over, handed her the keys, and stood on her front step longer than he needed to. She let her hand rest on his while she took the keys. She said, and this is exactly what she said because Cole told me later. Cole, if things were different, you know I'd have been the sister who chose you. He said, they aren't different, Megan. He drove home in my car. When he got back to our kitchen, he did something I didn't see him do until much later. He opened his laptop. He typed an email to Pastor Ellis Hartwell. 2 weeks left. She's escalating. At dinner that night, Cole kept looking at the front door as if he were waiting for someone. I asked if everything was all right. He said, I'm just tired. He wasn't lying. He was also not telling me the truth. The next morning, I found his black moleskin notebook open on the kitchen table. He must have forgotten to close it before he left for school. I read the first 2 pages before I could stop myself. September 4th. First VM from M. Says Linda works nights. Offers company. October 3rd. Coffee shop accident on Reading Road. She'd been sitting there an hour. October 9th. Cycle 3 transfer. Renee H. on shift. First red flag. November 12th. Text. Linda's exhausted. We should be alone. December 1st. Deborah's language showing up in M's texts. Same phrasing. Coaching. There were pages more. I did not read them. On the last page, in different handwriting, my father's. I saw a single line. April 25th. Anchor Day. I closed the notebook and put it back exactly where I found it. I did not ask Cole about it that night. I did not ask him about it the night after that. I trusted him. I understood with a certainty I couldn't have explained to anyone that whatever he was building was for me. The night before the anniversary, my father came by to drop off a bag of tomatoes from his garden. He didn't come inside. He walked into the garage. I followed him. He unfolded a soft gray cloth and draped it over the high chair. The one he'd bought me 3 years earlier. He didn't look at me while he did it. He said, whatever happens tomorrow, honey, keep this chair. Don't sell it. Then he left. I stood in the dark garage with my hand on the covered chair for a long time. The morning of the party, I put on the navy dress. Cole came up behind me at the bathroom mirror and pressed his mouth into my hair. Whatever happens today, he said, you will not be alone in it. He wasn't nervous. He looked the way he looks the night before a football game he's already broken down on film. Prepared. I did not know what my father knew. I did not know what Cole knew. I only knew that they had both told me, in different ways, that I would not be walking into that backyard alone. I still walked in nervous. I would not have believed you if you'd told me I was walking in armed. The party started at 4 in the afternoon on Saturday, April 25th. in the backyard of the house I grew up in on Reading Road. My mother had set up 6 round tables under a rented white canopy. There were 40 folding chairs and 40 place cards written in her calligraphy handwriting. There were 3 centerpieces of cream roses in glass vases and a 3-tier anniversary cake on a wooden stand under a smaller canopy near the back porch. Cole and I arrived at 3:30. Megan was already there. She was wearing a cream halter dress that stopped above her knees. She had lipstick that matched the roses. She hugged Cole for 4 full seconds. She said, into his neck, "You clean up so well." My mother came out of the house behind her, saw me in navy, and set her champagne flute down. "Oh, honey," she said. "The navy. Did you forget I said pastel?" I smiled at her. I didn't answer. I walked past her to table 4. Cousin Karen was already there with an untouched glass of wine, watching the kitchen door as if she'd been told to keep watch. Pastor Hartwell was seated next to her, reading the menu with more attention than the menu deserved. He looked up when I sat down. His voice was careful. "Linda," he said, "whatever happens today, please know the church stands with truth, not comfort." I looked at him. He held my eyes. Then he nodded once, very slowly. I was still deciding what to do with that sentence when Tyler ran up to my chair. He had grass stains on his knees and a red plastic cup of lemonade in his hand. He wrapped his free arm around my leg and beamed up at me. "Aunt Linda," he said, "Mommy said we're gonna live in your big house soon." The world went narrower. I bent down. I asked him what he meant. He shrugged the way 8-year-olds shrug. "Mommy said, you have the pool, and Uncle Cole. She says it makes more sense." His mother called his name from table 1. He ran back. I looked across the yard toward Cole. He'd seen the whole thing. He gave me a small nod. Steady. At 5 o'clock, my mother stood up to cut the cake. She thanked everyone for coming. She talked about 38 years of grace. She raised her glass to my father. My father stood up next. He kept it short. He looked out over the crowd instead of down at his notes. "I've been married to Deborah for 38 years, he said, "and I've been a father for 37. 2 things I've never forgotten. Who my daughters really are." My mother's face changed for 1 full second. She hadn't seen that line coming. She smiled through it and moved us on to the group photo. At 5:20 in the afternoon, everyone gathered around table 1 for the picture. Megan walked over to Cole with her wine glass in her hand and a small folded card in her fingers. She placed the card face up on the table in front of him. "Save me a seat forever." She had written it in her real estate agent handwriting, the same handwriting she used on greeting cards to closing clients. Then she said, laughing so the whole yard could hear, "Just squeeze in for the photo?" She lowered herself onto Cole's lap. The family erupted. Uncle Ray laughed. My mother's friend from fellowship laughed. A cousin I hadn't seen in 5 years threw her head back. Megan raised her wine glass. She smiled the way she used to smile in prom photos. My mother stood up at table 1 with her champagne flute in her hand and let her voice carry across the yard. "They actually look better together," she said. "Linda's too busy saving strangers and pumping hormones into her empty body to ever give Cole a real child anyway." The laughter went bigger. Then it went uneven. 3 women at table 3 set their wine glasses down at exactly the same time. Aunt Marilyn turned her face toward the fence and would not turn it back. An older woman at table 5, one of my mother's friends from fellowship, whom I had known since I was 6, picked up her purse and walked, without saying goodbye, to her car. Pastor Hartwell set his knife and fork down on his plate. He did not touch them again. I stood up. My hands were shaking. I did not say a word. Cole set his own wine glass down. He stood up. Megan was still on his lap when he stood, and gravity did what gravity does. She slid off, caught herself on the arm of the chair, and turned to face him with her lipstick still perfect. He didn't look at my mother. He looked at Megan. He took his phone out of his pocket. 17 voicemails, Megan, he said. Deborah coached the last 4. I have those texts too. Megan's smile came off her face like something that had never really been attached to it. My mother's champagne flute stopped halfway to her mouth and stayed there. My father set his fork down at table 1. He picked up a manila envelope from the seat of the chair beside him, the one he had brought and set there when we sat down and I had not thought to ask about. He walked across the grass without looking at his wife. He walked past table 1. He walked past table 2. He stopped at table 4 in front of me. He handed me the envelope. His voice was low enough that only Karen, the pastor, and I could hear him. Everything, honey, he said. I've been waiting for the right moment. Megan made a small sound and started to cry. My mother said, in a voice that was already trying to reset the room, "What is this? What is he doing?" Cole did not sit back down. He said, again in his teacher's voice, "Megan, that was Exhibit A. My phone has Exhibits B through R." I opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of printouts as thick as a paperback book. On the top page, in my father's handwriting, 62 pages. Read them in the order they're in. I sat down. Cole put his hand on the back of my chair. Karen slid her plate away from me so I would have room to spread the pages on the table. Pastor Hartwell picked up his water glass, took a drink, and looked at my mother in a way I had never seen a pastor look at anyone. The party was over. Nobody had left yet. For a full minute after Cole spoke, nobody at table 1 moved. Guests at the other tables kept setting down forks and picking up purses. A neighbor from 3 doors down folded her napkin, laid it neatly on her plate, and left through the side gate. 2 women from Women's Fellowship who had laughed loudest at the toast walked out to the driveway in a hurry. Uncle Ray tried to pretend the toast had been a joke and refilled his wine. Nobody joined him. My mother recovered first. She stood up at table 1. Her champagne flute was still in her hand. She said in the voice she uses for congregations, "Dale, what have you done?" My father was standing beside my chair at table 4. He turned toward her, the way a man turns toward weather he has been watching for a long time. "My job, Deborah," he said. 40 years late. She looked at him then, the way I had never seen her look at him. She was afraid. It was not the fear of a wife caught by her husband. It was the fear of a woman who had built a house of small choices and had just heard the first floorboard crack. I stood up before I could think about standing up. I said to Cole, "Take me home." Cole took my hand. My father walked out with us. Megan tried to follow. My mother said her name once, sharply. Megan stopped. She looked between our mother and the driveway. She stood there with cake frosting on the sleeve of her cream dress and lipstick smeared under her lower lip. Then she turned and went back into the house through the sliding door. She did not look at me. Cole drove. My father sat in the back. I sat in the passenger seat with the manila envelope in my lap. Nobody spoke for the first 4 blocks. On our own street, Cole pulled into the driveway and left the headlights on. He turned to me. "You can look now," he said. "Or you can look tomorrow. It's your call." "Now," I said. The first thing I found in the envelope was a timeline in my father's handwriting on yellow legal paper. 10 years of family events, laid out with dates. Every family dinner where Megan had been seated next to Cole was highlighted in yellow. Every Christmas where my gift had been noticeably cheaper was highlighted in yellow. My IVF cycles were listed in a column of their own, with the dates and the outcomes. At the bottom, my father had written a single line. "She started planning to remove you in September of 2025. The second thing I found was a stack of screenshots. 14 emails between my mother and a law firm in Cincinnati called Kelvin Truland. She had emailed under her own name. She had written from her personal Gmail. Every message opened with the same phrase. Hypothetically, if my son-in-law were to have an affair, what would the timeline be for a divorce in Ohio? Some of the emails specified my last name. Some specified that Cole taught school. One asked whether Ohio courts favor mothers over women who have failed to produce children. The last email, dated the second week of March, asked if it would be advisable for me to be informed of the affair before or after the anniversary. My father cleared his throat in the back seat. "I've known your mother favored Megan since before you were born," he said. "I let her, because I was a coward. Not tonight." He said before you were born the way he said hers in the garage. I stored it. I would get back to it. I turned to the last page in the envelope. It was a note in my father's handwriting. Renee Holloway, RN, night shift and weekends, Fertility Center of Ohio, surgical suite. Assists during embryo transfer procedures. Check her against Megan's Facebook photos from 2007. I opened Facebook on my phone. I scrolled to Megan's profile. I scrolled back 19 years. Junior prom, 2007, Mason High School. Megan in a lavender dress. Beside her, in a dark blue dress, arms linked, wide teenage grin, Renee Holloway. "They were best friends," my father said. "I saw them together at your mother's fellowship picnic in January. I didn't recognize her name until she was standing 5 feet from me by the deviled eggs." I turned in my seat. "Dad, how did you get the screenshots? From Mom?" He allowed himself a small, tired smile. "Your mother, God bless her, is 64 years old. She leaves her Gmail tab open on the kitchen laptop when she goes to fellowship meetings. 14 emails between October and January. I took photos with my phone. That's all." We went inside. Cole made me tea. He put a laptop on the kitchen table in front of me with a scanned copy of another records request. This one for the full raw data from Cycle 3 transfer procedure, filed 12 days earlier. Above the tea, above the laptop, I finally asked him the question I had been carrying for 3 weeks. "Cole, Cycle 3 didn't fail on its own, did it?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Before I open the medical records that changed everything, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt a silence in your own family that you knew wasn't accidental? That silence where everyone knew and nobody said? I read every comment before I keep going. This is where Revenge Episodes lives. I woke up at 6 the next morning. Sunday. I put on scrubs I didn't need for a hospital I wasn't scheduled at, because scrubs are the clothes I think in. Cole tried to say I didn't have to go anywhere. I said I needed to work. I did not go to the hospital. I went to the coffee shop 3 blocks from Christ Hospital where Colleen and I had first met. Colleen was waiting for me with her laptop open. She'd already made calls. "Linda," she said, "I need to tell you 3 things. Number 1, Renee Holloway is a real registered nurse, licensed in Ohio since 2013. Number 2, she has 2 prior complaints on file with the Ohio Board of Nursing. Both closed. Small things? Charting errors? Number 3." She turned the laptop toward me. "The overnight custodian at Fertility Center on October 9th is willing to talk to the state investigator. He saw her at the med refrigerator when she should have been in patient prep. He didn't think anything of it at the time. He said if he'd known then, he'd have said something." I looked at my coffee. I did not touch it. "What are you saying she did?" Colleen's voice went to the tone she uses in the operating suite when the patient's numbers start moving. "Linda, when the embryologist stepped out at 11:02 p.m. to answer a page, Renee altered the cosine form. Your chart says EZ67A. The transfer used EZ67B. EZ67B was a lot that had already been marked discarded 6 days earlier. That's the first thing. The second thing." She paused. "The transfer solution wasn't right. Someone added 3 milliliters of saline to the culture medium. Not enough to trigger a same-day flag. Enough to dilute it below viability." I sat back in the vinyl booth. I put my hands flat on the table because I needed to feel something solid. "Colleen, give me 24 hours. I already filed the ethics report yesterday," she said. The clinic ethics board is meeting Tuesday morning. If Renee lies, the state board takes it. If she talks, the state board still takes it. Either way, she doesn't practice in this state again. I thanked her. I paid for 2 coffees I hadn't drunk. I drove home the long way, past Mason High School and the church. While I was at the coffee shop, Cole was at the church. He'd asked Pastor Hartwell to meet him in the sanctuary at 9. Cole brought a laminated printout of every email between my mother and Kelvin Truland Law. Pastor Hartwell read them twice. Then he set them down and looked at Cole across his desk. "She used the sanctuary as a chessboard," he said. "I'll speak with her tomorrow morning." Cole told me all of this later in his own words, standing at our kitchen counter with his hands wrapped around a coffee that had gone cold 2 hours earlier. He also told me what he had asked next. "Pastor, what about Renee?" "She's a member of fellowship," Pastor Hartwell said. "If what you suspect is true, the church can't hold that." At 5 that evening, Sylvia Doyle called me. Sylvia had been Brandon's mother for 15 years. She had been Megan's mother-in-law for 11 of them. She had loved Megan the way she loved Brandon, right up until the divorce, and she had loved Tyler and Josie every single day since. She was calling from her landline in Westchester, which meant she wanted to be able to say later that she'd called on a landline. "Linda," she said, "I want you to know. Brandon's lawyer is filing for primary custody Monday morning. If you have anything about Megan's judgment, we're not asking for it. If the court gets it on its own, we won't stop it. I'm telling you as a courtesy. I know what she did to you was not a joke. I'm sorry." I told her, "I won't send anything, but I can't stop what people at that party saw." "Understood," she said. I hung up. I remembered Tyler's grass-stained knees. I remembered his lemonade sloshing on the toe of my shoe. The medical records arrived Monday morning by certified mail. 189 pages. Cole and I sat at the kitchen table and read every one. On page 87, we found it. In the chain of custody log, embryology lot EZ67A was pulled from cryo-storage at 10:42 p.m. on October 9th. The co-sign was Renee Halloway, RN. The primary sign was Dr. Bellamy. The physical transfer at 11:15 p.m. was recorded as EZ67A. But 3 pages later, in the lab discard log for October 3rd, EZ67B was listed as thawed, deemed non-viable, and marked for disposal. Under EZ67B, in the same column, someone had added a checkmark and initialed it, RH. The initials were beside the checkmark that said the discard had been reversed. I stood up from the table so fast my chair fell over. I called Colleen. I called our planning attorney. I called Pastor Hartwell. Then I sat on the kitchen floor for 4 minutes because I could not remember the last time I had breathed. Cole came down and sat on the floor beside me. He did not say a word. He held my hand. We stayed on the floor until the coffee maker beeped that the brew was done. I stood up. I built a timeline in my head. October 9, Renee on shift. October 7, Megan sent Cole a text asking if I was working nights that week. October 2, my mother called Megan and asked if she wanted advice on how to get Cole to come see the light. I did not know these dates in my head. I knew them in the timeline my father had written on legal paper. 3 lines converged at October 8. "Cole?" I said. Mom coordinated. Megan asked Renee. Renee did it. This wasn't an accident. And Pastor Hartwell is meeting my mother tomorrow. Cole nodded. "If she confesses anything in that meeting," he said, "he'll tell me." I looked at him. I loved him for 6 seconds without saying anything. Then I said, "I don't think she's going to confess. I need another way." Tuesday morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls from my mother and 8 voicemails. I did not open any of them. I opened one text from Cousin Karen instead. "Linda, we need to talk. Please." I called her from the driveway of the hospital before my shift. She asked if she could meet me before I went in. I said yes. We met at the little diner 2 blocks from Christ Hospital that never has more than 3 tables occupied. Karen was already there. She had a folded napkin in her fist and mascara on the napkin. She began before I sat down. Linda, your mother has been telling my side of the family for 6 months that you and Cole were unhappy, that you were clinging to a marriage that was already over. She said it in fellowship. She said it at my mother's birthday in February. She said it to me on the phone the week before the party. Karen wiped her eyes with the napkin and made it worse. I believed her. I brought a casserole. I told my mother the toast at your anniversary might get emotional, but that we should just support Megan. I helped her, Linda. I'm sorry. She kept going. She told me my mother had asked her to sit at my table on purpose, to comfort me when I realized, to keep me from making a scene by making my seatmate someone I couldn't be rude to. I did not thank her. I did not tell her I understood. I sat with my coffee and I let her talk until she had nothing left. Then I said, Karen, would you write that down for me? She nodded. She took a napkin out of the dispenser and wrote it down. She signed it in cursive at the bottom. She dated it April 28th. At lunchtime, my Aunt Marilyn Grady emailed me from the account she used for church emails. Linda, my sister has been my sister for 61 years. She has also been a woman who could not tell the truth about her own choices. What she did to you began the day Megan was born. I should have said something. I am saying it now. I am ready to say it in front of fellowship on Sunday. Please tell me what you need. Marilyn. I read the email 3 times. On the 4th read, I called her. Aunt Marilyn, do you know the secret Mom kept about Megan? The line was quiet for a long moment. Yes, she said. And you deserve to hear it from your father, not from me. Wednesday afternoon, Cole took me to our planning attorney's office in Cincinnati. Not to file for divorce, to update the medical power of attorney we'd signed when we married. Deborah Secor, my mother, had been the secondary agent listed for medical decisions if Cole was unavailable. We removed her. We named my father Dale as backup, then Aunt Marilyn, then Colleen. The attorney also drafted a letter for Fertility Center of Ohio, confirming that my mother had no legal standing in any decision related to fertility treatment or future child welfare in our family. I signed. Cole signed. The attorney witnessed. As we walked out into the parking lot, I said one word. Adoption? Cole said. Whenever you're ready. I smiled for the first time in 6 days. It felt strange on my face. I did not want to lose it. At 8 o'clock that night, my mother knocked on our front door. I opened it because I did not want her to think I was afraid of her. She was carrying a foil-wrapped casserole. She was wearing her fellowship dress. Her eyes were red, but they were not crying eyes. They were the eyes she wore when she preached. Linda, she said, I know you think I did something terrible, but you have to understand, Megan is your sister. Family is family. If you take this outside this family, the whole community is going to see you as the daughter who broke us, the pastor, the women I have prayed with for 20 years, everyone. Please, let's sit down. Let me explain the toast. I didn't mean what people are hearing. I looked past her at the porch light. I looked at the casserole. I looked at her fellowship dress. Then I looked back at her. Mom, I said, you have 30 seconds to be off my porch. Before I call Pastor Hartwell. She almost dropped the casserole. Her mouth opened. She said, you wouldn't dare. I picked up my phone. I let her see the screen. I pressed the pastor's number. It began to ring. She turned and walked to her car. She did not close the porch gate behind her. I did. I locked the door. I locked the deadbolt. I stood in the front hall until the ringing went to voicemail. Then I sat down on the floor and breathed, for the first time in a week, like a person who lived in her own house. At 8:15 the next morning, Pastor Hartwell called Cole. Cole put the phone on speaker on our kitchen counter. The pastor's voice came through in the deliberate, low register I had grown up hearing at every funeral in Mason. "She confessed to coaching Megan," he said. "She confessed to hiring the divorce lawyer. She has told me that she called Cincinnati 14 times. She refused to confess about the clinic. She said, and I quote, 'I will not stand here and be accused of hurting my daughter's baby.' I have told her that the fellowship board will meet Sunday afternoon. She will be removed from leadership by end of business." Cole took a slow breath. "Pastor, is there something else?" "There is," Pastor Hartwell said. "She said something at the end of our meeting I want you and Linda to hear from me together. Can you both come by the parsonage tomorrow?" Cole said we would. I hung up. Cole went back to work. I drove to my parents' house without telling anyone. I did not know if my mother would be there. I knew where I would find my father either way. At the same time, I was pulling into the driveway on Reading Road, 17 miles away in Cincinnati. The Ethics Board at Fertility Center of Ohio was meeting in a conference room on the 4th floor. Renee Holloway was seated at one end of the table with a lawyer she had hired from a website. My friend Colleen had submitted her report and left before the meeting began. The chief embryologist was seated in the middle of the table with the lab discard log for October 3rd open in front of him. Renee wept for 11 minutes before her lawyer told her to speak. Then, in a shaking voice, she gave the confession that the Ethics Board recorded and later provided to the Ohio Board of Nursing and, through subpoena, to the Warren County Prosecutor's Office. "Megan Secor Doyle is my best friend since senior prom, 2007. In February of 2025, she told me her mother was worried about her sister. She said her sister was too stubborn to see that her marriage was over. She asked me if I ever assisted with Linda's transfers, because Linda's clinic and mine were the same. I said yes. On the night of October 9th, when the embryologist stepped out to answer a page, I altered the cosign form to change the lot ID from EZ67A to EZ67B. I also added 3 milliliters of saline to the culture medium. Enough to dilute below viability, not enough to trigger a same-day flag. Megan told me her mother said Linda would then stop clinging to Cole. I did not think it would end the pregnancy. I thought it would just delay. I have thought about that every day since. I am sorry. She signed it. Her lawyer signed it. The ethics board voted unanimously to refer to the state. Later that afternoon, on the sidewalk outside her townhouse in Mason, Megan was served with an emergency motion for primary custody of Tyler and Josie by Brandon's attorney's process server. The video of the party had spread on Facebook by then. 2 women who had been at table 3 had cross-posted it with commentary. A former high school classmate of Megan's had shared it with her ex-husband. The petition attached the video as Exhibit F. At 6 that evening, Megan left me a voicemail. She was sobbing. "Linda, please. He's taking the kids. Please tell them it was a joke. Please." I did not call her back. I was already at my father's kitchen table on Reading Road. My mother was not home. My father told me she had gone to stay with Aunt Marilyn for a few days. He didn't say anything else about her. He poured me coffee. He set the 2 mugs down. He opened the drawer next to the phone. He placed 2 pieces of paper on the table between us. "Linda," he said, "there's something I should have told you when you were 15. I looked down at the papers. The first was a certificate of marriage. April 5th, 1988. Deborah Ellen Secor and Dale Franklin Secor. The second was a certificate of live birth. December 15th, 1988. Megan Elizabeth Secor. 8.5 months. My mother had told everyone at church that Megan was premature. I already knew what he was going to say before he said it. Your mother and I got engaged in December of '87, he said. She was pregnant by February. The wedding got moved up 6 months. Everyone at church thought Megan came early. Only your mother, and me, and the doctor, knew the truth. He wrapped his hand around his coffee mug. He was old. His hand shook. Your mother has lived with that shame for 38 years. And for all 38 of those years, she believed that if Megan got the best of everything, the best clothes, the best attention, the best husband, the shame would erase. But shame does not erase, it just moves to another daughter. I felt something behind my ribs give way. It was not grief, it was recognition. I said, "Does Megan know?" He said, "Not yet. I plan to tell her today. With your permission." I said, "Tell her. But tell her because she deserves to know. Not to hurt Mom." He nodded. I stood up. I hugged my father for a long time. He whispered into my hair, "I'm sorry, honey. 40 years late." I drove home. I told Cole everything. He held me on the kitchen floor while I did not cry. Then I got up. I opened my laptop. I wrote an email to Pastor Hartwell. "Pastor, I will not report this to the Warren County Police. I will not file a civil suit against my sister or the clinic. I will not post the video that's already going around. But I will speak at fellowship this Sunday if you allow it. Not to shame my mother. To close this door." He wrote back in 6 minutes. "Sunday, 10 a.m. Fellowship Hall. I'll clear the schedule." Cole read the exchange over my shoulder. "Are you sure?" he said. I said, "I'm sure." Sunday morning, I put on a charcoal gray dress. Not white, not cream, not navy. I put on flats because I planned to walk out standing straight, and I did not want to worry about my heels. I brought a black folder with brass fasteners. Inside the folder were 15 pages in the order I had decided the night before. Cole watched me put my earrings in. He said, "Do you want me to speak?" I said, "No. Stand next to me. You've already said your part." He kissed the side of my head. My father was in our kitchen making coffee when we came downstairs. He had put on his good jacket for the first time since Christmas. The three of us drove to Mason United Methodist Church together in Cole's truck. Fellowship Hall is the room in the church basement where the women's fellowship meets, where funerals hold their receptions, where the youth group does their pancake breakfasts on Palm Sunday. That morning, on a Sunday when there was no funeral scheduled and no youth breakfast planned, it was full. 80 people. Every folding chair was taken. My mother was seated in the second row from the front. Megan was in the very back row, near the door. Aunt Marilyn was in the front row. Pastor Hartwell was standing at the podium. He watched us come in the door. He waited for us to sit in the seats reserved for us in the front row before he began. "This morning, Linda Seeker has asked to address fellowship," he said. "What she says is her own. What we do with it is ours." I stood up. I walked past my mother's row without looking at her. I took the podium. I opened my folder. I set my hands on the wood. I looked at Aunt Marilyn. She nodded. I looked at Megan. She would not meet my eyes. I began. "I'm not here to shame my family," I said. "I'm here because my family used this church to build lies about me for 8 months. And this church deserves to hear the truth from me before it hears it from anyone else." The room was quiet. "On April 25th, I said, at our anniversary party, my mother told 40 guests that my body was empty and that I could never give Cole a real child. She said it into a champagne toast. My sister sat on my husband's lap while she said it. My mother had rehearsed it. I know this because Karen Wexler heard the rehearsal in December and told me on Tuesday morning at a diner. Karen wrote down what she heard. Karen signed it. It is in this folder." I turned the first page. "On my husband's phone right now," I said, "are 17 voicemails that my sister Megan left him between September 4th of 2025 and April 18th of 2026. Cole did not delete them. He saved them. I am not going to play 17 voicemails today. I am going to play 2. I unlocked Cole's phone. I set it on the podium beside the microphone. I hit play on the 2 files I had marked the night before. The first voicemail was Megan on a Thursday in November. Cole, honey. Linda works nights again tomorrow. If you need anyone to talk to. Or anything else. I'm home alone. Mom knows. She's the one who suggested I call. The second was Megan on a Sunday afternoon in February. Cole. Mom just left the house. She wants me to tell you Linda has been talking about a divorce with her mother. That's not true. But I said I would tell you anyway. Because families should tell the truth to each other. Right? I turned the phone off. My mother did not raise her head from her lap. Megan was still facing me from the back row. Her face was blank. I turned the second page. Yesterday, I said, a nurse named Renee Holloway confessed to the ethics board at Fertility Center of Ohio. She confessed that on October 9th of last year, during my third IVF cycle, she altered a chart and contaminated the transfer solution. She confessed that she did this because my sister Megan asked her to. She confessed that my sister asked her to because my mother had told my sister that I would then, and I am quoting from the confession, stop clinging to Cole. A man in the fifth row stood up. Alan Foster. He was the fellowship treasurer. He put on his jacket. He walked out. 3 women in row 3 stood up 10 seconds later. They walked out together. Nobody stopped them. Pastor Hartwell nodded at each of them as they passed. I turned the third page. My mother called my body empty in front of 40 guests last Saturday. She wasn't wrong about one thing. There is an empty chair in my kitchen. My father gave it to me 3 years ago. I have been waiting for it to be filled. What my mother did not understand is that an empty chair is not the same as an empty life. And an empty page, like the one she wanted my marriage to become, is not the same as a marriage waiting to happen. I lifted a piece of paper in each hand. This is my marriage certificate, I said. My husband signed it in 2020. He signed it once. He has kept signing it every single day since. I lifted the other page. This one is blank. This is what my mother's plan required. A page where my marriage used to be. She emailed a divorce attorney in Cincinnati 14 times. She was willing to build this page, but she couldn't. Because Cole never gave her the pen. Deborah made a sound then, a small collapse in her throat. She began to cry the way people cry when they are heard for the first time. Megan did not move. I closed the folder. I turned to face my mother. I will not report you to the police, I said. I will not sue you. I will not sue the clinic. I will not post the video. I do not need to. Not one of those things needs to happen for me to be free of you. Because from today, I am. I love my father. I do not know if I love you anymore. I know I don't have to. I turned toward Megan. I will not tell you what to do about your children, I said. I will not help Brandon's lawyer. I will not stop him either. I will not answer your voicemails. I stopped. I said one more thing. Do not call me your sister until you know why our mother made you. Megan stood up in the back row. She held something in her hand. I recognized it. My father had made her a copy last night. Her own birth certificate. She walked down the aisle between the folding chairs. She did not look at me. She stopped in front of our mother's seat in the second row. She held out the birth certificate. She did not raise her voice. Dad told me yesterday, she said. I am not angry at Dad. I am angry at you for making me the reason you needed Linda to fail. Our mother sank into her chair. No one caught her. No one moved. I closed my folder. My father stood. Cole stood. The 3 of us walked up the center aisle toward the door. At the door, the woman who had walked out of my parents' backyard the previous Saturday, the older friend of my mother's from fellowship, whom I had known since I was 6, put her hand on my elbow. Honey, she said. I'm sorry I believed her. I nodded. I did not have any words left. We walked out. Cole drove. I looked at the church in the rearview mirror. I did not turn my head. The consequences did not arrive all at once. They arrived the way real things arrive. In pieces. over weeks. On Friday, May 8th, 13 days after the party and 5 days after fellowship, the Ohio Board of Nursing issued a summary suspension of Renee Holloway's RN license. The order was public. The full revocation hearing was scheduled for August. She was not permitted to work in any licensed medical facility in the state of Ohio while the case was pending. Colleen texted me from Christ Hospital when the notice hit the board's public website. "It's public now. She won't work at any Ohio clinic again," I replied. "Thank you. Now I don't have to think about her." I closed the laptop. I did not think about her again that day. On Sunday, May 10th, 1 week after fellowship, the Administrative Board of Mason United Methodist Church voted to remove Deborah Secor from all leadership positions in the Women's Fellowship. The vote was unanimous. Pastor Hartwell mailed my mother a certified letter with the decision. She did not appeal. She did not come to church that Sunday. 2 weeks later, we heard from Aunt Marilyn that Deborah had begun attending a Baptist church in West Chester, where none of the members had ever met her. Pastor Hartwell mailed me a letter, too. "The church has done what it needs to do. You have done what you needed. The rest is not ours to fix." I read that letter twice. I folded it. I put it in the desk drawer with the IVF invoices. I did not throw those invoices away. I did not need to. On Friday, May 15th, 17 days after Brandon Doyle's emergency motion was filed, and 18 days after the party, the Warren County Family Court entered temporary orders. Primary residence for Tyler and Josie moved to Brandon. Megan retained weekend visitation. The court noted in the order that a viral social media video and a subsequent civil investigation into a close friend of the mother indicated poor judgment sufficient to modify the residency schedule during the pendency of the divorce court's review. Sylvia Doyle called me the day the order came down. She was crying, but not with victory. "Linda," she said, "I want you to know. Brandon is going to let the children see Megan. He's going to pick them up on Fridays himself. I will help with pickups. He said to tell you thank you for not sending anything." He said, and this is a direct quote, "Linda didn't have to be dignified. She chose to." I said, "Sylvia, please be gentle with those children." She said, "I have been gentle with those children since the day they were born, honey." She hung up before I did. On Wednesday, May 20th, my father moved out of the house on Reading Road and into a 2-bedroom cottage on a corner lot in Loveland, 25 minutes east of Mason. Cole and I helped him carry boxes. He didn't have very many. He had 2 of his mother's china plates, 1 of his own father's toolboxes, and the small maple side table my grandfather had built by hand in 1960. He'd left the wedding china behind at the house. He said he wanted my mother to have something to serve on when Marilyn came over. We ate dinner in the new cottage that first night. My father made the coffee himself. He rented the cottage from a friend who owned 3 of them and had made the offer at fellowship 2 weeks before the party, though at the time neither he nor my father knew what the offer was really for. My father sat at his own kitchen table for the first time in 38 years. He said, "I waited too long, but I wasn't late." I put my hand on his. He put his other hand on top of mine. He asked, "Have you 2 made the adoption decision?" I said, "We sign Friday." He smiled the smile I had not seen in 34 years. We signed the foster to adopt application at the Warren County Job and Family Services office in Lebanon, Ohio, on Friday, May 22nd, at 11 in the morning. Our caseworker was a woman named Beverly who had been placing children in Warren County for 19 years. She asked us how long we had been ready. I said, "We've been ready for 4 years." Cole put his hand over mine on the table. We signed at the same time. That evening, Cole and my father brought the high chair in from our garage. They pulled off the soft gray cloth. The oak had not changed. My father wiped it down with his shirt sleeve. Cole set it in the corner of our kitchen, angled toward the window that looks out on the back garden. The morning light will hit it every day at 7 a.m. which is when I get home from night shifts. I put my hand on the top rail. I looked at Cole. I looked at my father. Someone will sit here one day, I said. Not the one I expected. The one I'm given. That night after dinner, after my father drove home to his cottage, after Cole went upstairs to grade papers, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea I did not drink. I opened the drawer with the marriage certificate and the letter from Fertility Center of Ohio. I took out the folded index card Cole had written to me in April. 3rd year in a row. Whatever the result, I'm here. I picked up a pen. I wrote underneath, in my own handwriting, 4th year. Different result. Different plan. Still here. My mother taught me that being useful was the same as being loved. She used the word empty at a party in front of 40 guests, as if she had made me that way with her toast. But an empty chair is not the same as an empty life. An empty page is not a marriage waiting to be erased. And an empty body is not a body that failed. It is a body that was sabotaged and lied about, and paraded in front of a table so that everyone I grew up loving could laugh at what had been taken from me. It took my sister climbing into my husband's lap. It took my father breaking his silence. It took one small note in a kitchen, in blue pen, for me to learn the difference between the empty someone calls you and the full you become when you stop trying to fill their glass. If this named something in your own life, a table you shouldn't sit at, a silence mistaken for peace, a toast that was meant to make you disappear, share it. Not for me. For someone still laughing through their own humiliation because they haven't found their evidence yet. This is Revenge Episodes. Subscribe if you want more stories about the quiet ways families break and the louder ways women walk out whole. Every receipt matters.